Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fed Up. Joining me today are Mike and Ricky from the Arizona Black and Death band King Ov WYRMS. Can't wait to get into this. Thanks for joining us, guys. And how is it going today?
Good. Thank you
Going
for
good,
having us, man.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome, man. I've been looking forward to this for a while. So, jump straight in. The album artwork definitely caught my attention. It's got that Lovecraftian theme as what is throughout the album as well. And I think it's interesting how you've got you see the object in the middle there, like the two kind of curved mounds coming up around it, I guess, and then like the cosmic horror Lovecraftian kind of creatures coming down on it. So I'm just curious who developed that for you.
There was a concept that I was kind of putting together, just kind of like a generalized idea of what I wanted for an album cover. And I have a really good friend of mine. Her name is Christian Georgia. She goes by Authira Art, AUTHYRA Art on most multimedia platforms. And she's done a ton of paintings for me before. She's done album covers. And she was a good go-to person for me. So we kind of like worked it out together and bounced it back and forth on what we were initially going to do. Like the Lovecraftian monster thing at first was just supposed to be like a mass of like human torsos, kind of like pulling over each other. And we eventually kind of started changing them, and she made them into monsters and things like that. And we built that like monolith in the center as like a center point, like they're trying to get down to that center point. But yeah, she pretty much took the helm on that one. I gave her a rough idea and she went off and did her thing, and I couldn't have asked for a better outcome on that one. I think it turned out perfect.
Yeah, it draws you to it because again you can see, as I've said, like the cosmic horror vibe there, the letter and the monolith in the middle. And the title, the Womb of Borealis. Borealis. Sorry, I've butchered that. Lingo special. When did you come up with that title? Just curious.
I wish I had a genuine answer for that. Yeah. I was just in the middle of my day at one point. I think I was on my way to work or something like that, my day job, and I was just sitting there in the middle of the night. And I was just saying the chorus line to myself, we adhere to the Womb of Borealis. And then I was like, all right, I don't know where that came from, but that sounds pretty rad. I'm going to keep working off of that. And then I basically just kind of kept building off of like this chorus line, like an occultist chant. We adhere to the Womb of Borealis, like vultures feeding on the carrion of the maelstrom. Speak the forgotten verse, in AEONS we spoke. And that basically became more or less like the starting point, I would say, for the album, because that became the song in AEONS we spoke. That kind of inspired the artwork. And then we took that one line from the chorus line of in AEONS, and it became the album title, The Womb of Borealis. So it all kind of just snowball effect from just, I don't know, searching the old brain for the Lovecraftian vibes, I guess.
Yeah. That's really cool to hear because something I noticed with the entire album, I'll probably get back to this theme as we're chatting today, is, and when I was reading about you as well, the difference in approach this time, that there's like a real free flow method, really free form, and that sense of seeing what naturally comes out from you playing the music, that shines throughout. And when we were bouncing back some emails the other day, I said I could even hear, and throughout other songs on the album as well, not just with in AEONS we spoke, I can even hear, and I'm going to kind of show where my leanings are musically. There's people who think, God, this guy's always on about punk and hardcore, but I can.
Hey, you like what you like.
Yeah. I always find a way to get it in there.
It's the energy, man. You can't help but be drawn to that stuff. It's good. It's good energy.
Yeah, and I think as well the influence that it's had on extreme metal as well, and people underestimate that. But I can hear those kind of hardcore grindy riffs, even in the background on some of them, mixed with, you know, the HM2 old school death vibe as well, apart from all the other elements we get into. And for me as a listener, it really did add something different. It caught my attention. It added that bit of grit, speed, and I was like, man, I can hear this in here. I'm like, this is pretty rad. I want to keep listening and hear more. So I like the fact that you've definitely stepped outside the box. You're saying, right, we're not just going to do the tried and tested format of doing things. So my very long-winded, I guess, statement here. Is that how you did it for the whole album? You just got together, see what naturally happened, and didn't pay too much heed on trying to follow the tried and tested methods?
When we first started, when I came into this and started doing all the drum parts, I remember early on, there are some parts within the song that are definitely like breakdown type parts, and I was you know, gonna do some breakdowns to them, to which he was like, no breakdowns. So which again, like I'm a, you know, deathcore fan. I come from that sort of background, but I also, you know, in previous bands that I've been in, I've always tried to bring a darker element to those bands, because that's just kind of how I've always, and what I've always been drawn to. But you know, being the drummer that I am, there are, you know, and any drummer you ask them, there are certain things they like to do and are comfortable with doing and have done a lot. So you know, it's kind of like, oh, I'll just go back to that. You know, I know how to do that. I know it's a tried and true way for me. And I just think that, you know, for me, and when we got all these songs going and started recording them and practicing them and whatnot, like, what really helped immensely for me with everything was not only the click track, but also having him be like, don't do what you would normally always do. Just think of something else. And that for me, that's how all of this came together. Like stepping outside of the box, like you had said previously, like thinking of another way to play over that part without necessarily going into what you're used to.
Yeah. Do you think that, with that said, that helps you stand out? Because we often can make that argument for now, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's so much metal, you know, there's so many subgenres as well, that we've got this oversaturation. So, you know, with that said, do you think it gives you that edge?
Most definitely, I would say so. I know we're kind of beating a dead horse with the whole blackened death metal thing that we're kind of coined into. There's so many bands that do it now, but the main problem I would say, at least with metal nowadays, is it's so easy to put your music out there, and it's so easy to copy someone else's like their vibe, their approach. And there's a lot of these bands now that are releasing albums that sound exactly like the last project they were a part of or something or another. And that was kind of, I think, the misinterpretation with our first album. If you got a chance to listen to it, Lord of Thorns, when I did that by myself, I was trying to make an homage album to like those late 80s, early 90s death and black metal bands. I wasn't trying to really be original. And that seemed to be the one really bad review we got from that album. Was people are like, you know, it sounds good, it's cool, it's nothing new, but could you try to do something more original? And I was like, well, that wasn't the intent with that first album, but you know, maybe something is going on good with King. I'll try to, you know, I'm just going to take a step back. I'm not going to listen to albums for inspiration. I'm not going to be like, oh, hey, I like Morbid Angel, let me do a Morbid Angel riff. Let me do a Carcass riff. I'm just going to take a step back. I'm going to seclude myself, just do my guitar riffs, put things together. And that's how this whole album naturally flowed. And I feel, compared to other albums I've heard lately, it's an oddball. I wouldn't say it's breaking the wheel and making a whole new thing in its own right, but it definitely doesn't feel or sound like anything I've heard in the last couple of years, respectfully.
Well, I think, like I said, there's something there for everybody. There's the speed, there's the aggression, there's the intensity, there's the moody, atmospheric parts, which are almost very cinematic, film-like, actually, which we'll explore more. There's on one song I can hear the jazz element at the beginning, and it helps set up the song, and then it goes in, you know, and then obviously the song gets heavier and more aggressive. So bands of any genre of music who do that for me, I always take extra attention of, and this is no ass kissing here. I'm like, yeah, these guys are doing something different. I mean, the famous example, I mean, we've got like Septic Flesh, you know, he incorporate all the classical music. Yeah, me too, man. I'll get into that later on.
I opened
classical
for them.
music. Oh man. Okay, but let's get into it now. Topic.
Round of applause for Ricky, guys.
Yeah. First off topic moment. Yay. Man, that must have been
Yeah, my previous band, Olden, we did the tour where it was Septic Flesh, Tear, and God, I want to say one other band.
Moon Sorrow?
Yeah, somebody like that.
Nice,
yeah, but
nice.
yeah, we opened up for him up at the now no longer with us Club Red in Mesa, Arizona. Super sick venue. If you've ever played there, it's awesome. It's like two separate rooms, one's bigger than the other. Yeah. They always had their shit together. It was an awesome place to play. I love that venue. Loved it. Man.
You know, there's something about you know, classical music fused with extreme metal as well. It just, I know there's the whole like symphonic Black and Death, etc. But it just adds that it adds another layer. And it's like those instruments can emphasize the horror part as well, because it makes you think of like all those old school traditional horror stories and movies. You know, I see it in my head, like say all the mist and fog and something creeping along, and you know something's coming. So I think that's fantastic. There's a band from over here. I'm probably going to butcher the name. I've possibly called Bodu Thodo, and I've probably absolutely butchered them. And then, like,
I thought for sure you would know that.
I was like,
you guys are encyclopedia metal, so
yeah. They use like I think they're originally from Eastern Europe, but they live in London now, and they use like lots of traditional like ethnic instruments.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
Dude, there's elements of thrash, death, everything in there, and I'm just like, yeah, it might just be say a simple addition of using one instrument, but it works. There's another band called Aid, who are like a Roman version of Nile, I guess, with all their music just about.
Oh, that's awesome!
That's sweet. I love that.
Oh, I think George Kleist possibly did something with that band as well. Definitely worth checking out. If anyone likes Nile, then definitely check out Aid. I think it's ADE. I probably pronounced that wrong as well, but it is literally a Roman version of Nile, and makes you think of all the Roman legions marching when you hear it as well. So getting back on topic, and I'm getting excited just for a second, be like, it's supposed to be about you guys. Yeah, man, always it regularly happens. So you know, when you were saying, Mike, about like there's so many bands now and it's so easy to put your music out there, and the criticism people had of the early release was they wanted the songs to be more original. Well, it's really, I think it's, and I don't mean this to be patronizing either, it is quite hard to do as well, because everything has been done, you know, in movies, games, books, everything has been done. So it's sometimes, I think, not so easy to stand out, because there's even a lot of bands who will just sound like the band they're influenced by, or that band doesn't mean they're bad musicians or anything. So do you think sometimes if we can't try and be different, which isn't always so easy, is just simply just play, see what comes out, and if you enjoy it, people will either like it or not, and sometimes I think that's just what we've got to do.
Yeah, most definitely. There was a concept that was brought up when I was still like in college learning about like music theory and stuff like that, where don't quote me if I'm wrong, but my teacher, after we learned about all these different like flows of music and theory and structure and how to make things, was at the end of it, two main points. Everything has already been done theoretically in music, so you can't theoretically be original. Like, we only have so many notes, we only have so many keys. The only thing you can do is just try to present what's already been presented in a different way. And then the other bit of it is, you know, theoretically music isn't perfect, so you don't have to justify everything you do theoretically in music theory. So those like two things I really took to heart getting older was not everybody is going to be able, well, it's theoretically impossible to make something brand new nowadays. It might just be the same thing presented previously, maybe in a new light or a new kind of way. Like I'm sure you can probably take, well, it's kind of like you said, you had that Roman band that was like Roman Nile. Like they did the same
pretty much.
thing, but they presented it in a different way, which is refreshing. So even if we're not being, I don't think anybody can realistically be original, I guess, if that makes sense. All you can do is just take what you had and kind of present it in a new light. Like I wouldn't say our first album is drastically different from this one. I feel like we took a lot of the same elements, but we presented them more creatively and I guess uniquely compared to either what's available at the time or what we've done specifically.
No, I think that's so true and can be applied to many things now, even martial arts, because they've been around a long time, and you have the original forerunners, and then the styles themselves get more modernized. We'll take practical elements, we'll use this is what works, we won't get rid of that aspect, we won't use that. So even if someone says, right, I'm going to set up a new urban fighting system, but it's got aspects of this, I'm going to take aspects of this, that, and the other. There's like you said, it's never going to be purely original. So I guess it's just trying to sometimes add on, as we said, stepping out of the box, adding on this little difference here and there, and I think it helps go a long way. So, question to you both. So how do you feel this has helped improve the writing since the first release?
For me, I would say I think the biggest difference between the two of us and what helps is that he's got all the music theory in his toolbox, and I'm just a self-taught, like, play off a feel guy. Like, coming into this, I never played anything I've recorded in the past to a click track, and coming into this, he sent me the songs. I was like, hey, can you turn off the click? And he was like, no, if you want to do this, you have to do it. So I was like, all right, I'm not squandering this opportunity again. Like, all right. And so that was immensely, like, helpful. Like, cause I'm not going to lie, I was very intimidated by a click all throughout my drumming career. I've played drums for 22 years, and this is the first thing I've recorded to a click track. And, but I think also that's what kind of, makes everything unique that we've done, because again, I'm sort of the spastic, like, just naturally taught guy, play off feel. I've never had to do drugs because I have a wild imagination, and I'm capable of just closing my eyes and I see shit as I'm playing, and I just go with that. And I sound like a complete psycho. That's fine. But no, like, that's kind of where, like, we complement each other, where he's got all the theory and stuff down, and I'm like, dude, what if I took that part and just went with it? And like, yeah, it works that way for us, because like, even when we sit here and like do demos and stuff like that, he kind of expects a certain thing that I come in and I completely do. I turn left, and he was like, dude, I was fucking not expecting that whatsoever. Like, and that's refreshing to hear. That's always really good to hear as a drummer, because, like, you want the person that you're recording with, or the people you're recording with, to be like, holy shit, that was cool. And if, like, they're not doing that, then you should probably be like, well, man, maybe I should do something different. But that, for me, that's what sets us apart, I think.
Yeah, this partnership has definitely kind of presented something entirely different and very refreshing, I would say, because with the first album, I produced that one entirely by myself. So I, got behind a shitty little kit, and I was trying to do drum lines, but I'm not a good drummer. So I would take what I did and then kind of like embellish it and make it like an actual good drummer's performance. Yeah. But I guess having that mentality of, covering bass, covering guitars, covering vocals, trying to put together drums when you're not a drummer, it was pretty overwhelming, I would say. And this time around, having Ricky help me on this project, we were able to split the workload. And basically, him pretty much taking all the percussion elements and a lot of like time feels let me open up more as a guitarist and a vocalist, and do my bass work, which kind of let this album, I would say it helped this album breathe a lot more. It feels more open and diverse just because Ricky's got a whole new mildly unorthodox way of performing drums. Not it's overwhelming and intense, but in a very refreshing and expressive way. And I feel like this partnership has pretty much shown drastic improvement in our workflow.
Yeah, sometimes as well, it's just the timing with things, the right moment, and it sounds like everything has come together. You've got that good chemistry now, bouncing back and forth with your ideas, the writing, the music, which only help and solidify that partnership. So that's really, really good to hear, man. And I think that shines as well. The video as well for the opener in AEONS, we spoke. When I was watching that, that has people thinking, God, this guy's such a nerd as well. But I see any excuse to slip in references to horror and other stuff as well. I know, folks. I know.
Hey, man, I totally get the horror stuff with you. I'm completely obsessed with horror myself. Like, I get it.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. Horror, sci-fi, fantasy, action, all that stuff. It's just something about it. And like you said about having, like a visual imagination. And I've been saying this a lot with guests who come on the show. I'm the same with comedy. Just I see it play out in my head like a movie. So I can be walking somewhere and then I'll just start laughing and people like,
totally. Yeah. I get talking to myself all the time, or like reciting movie stuff all the time. Like, who are you talking to? Don't worry about it.
Or you've got to share that line or funny moment with someone, whatever time it is, WhatsApp number through, and someone, dude, you've got to see this. To be like,
right? And tell me now. Nobody else thinks it's funny, and you're like, come on, that's funny. Come on.
Yeah. Excuse me, I'm getting hyper. I'm choking myself now. So, what I liked when I watched the video as well, it's got like that traditional horror movie vibe. You've got the ritual there, the way it was filmed. It has that atmosphere, and then it matches with the ferocity of the music. So, was that filmed locally, and how long did it take to shoot?
Oh man, that's definitely locally. It was filmed probably about less than half a mile from my house. There's a park in the neighborhood over from my house, and I was out walking my dogs one day, and I came upon this like perfectly covered like area with Palo Verde trees, and there was like a break in the trees where you could see directly to the Catalina Mountains, which is north of Tucson here. And it was a complete like desert scape around, and like if you stepped out and looked toward the east, you saw the Rincon Mountains. So Tucson's surrounded by mountains, but this area was just perfect. There was already like a fire pit from like the homeless or the locals that used the park for whatever it was. But I immediately took video and pictures of it, and I was like, dudes, I know exactly where we're gonna film our video. Like, and sent it to him, sent it to our video guy, like, and for the most part, like, the whole idea behind the video was just like a whole like just ritual druid, like just conjuring something, and you don't really know what it is. You don't actually see anything per se. You do see the actual act of the ritual. You see the character walk in and do the whole thing, light the fire, and you come into a whole slew of druids holding, that part for me came from like the professional wrestling, like when the Undertaker used to come out and stuff. Yeah. So that was kind of cool, but like I've always wanted to do something like that in a video, and I finally got the opportunity to do it here. So and I was lucky enough for everyone that participated they all did a really great job. He went with the whole idea, and we actually came up with some really good ideas, and did the whole thing. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, I bet it was a lot of fun, man. Do you have any other videos that you're working on, for other songs from the album?
Currently, no.
No, we do have a lyric music video coming out later in the future for one of the songs, but at the moment, that's really the only like professional, like actual music video, performance video we have at the moment.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool, man. Enjoyed watching that one for sure. So Grave of Birth, the next one, and from what I was reading about it, it's about like death, rebirth. I'm guessing the cycle continuing. So was there any, and I could be way off here, Mike, was there any, is there kind of like that lesson for life involved with it, like learning, you know, rebirth from better experiences, or simply just the never-ending cycle?
More so the never-ending cycle and how abrupt it can all be.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the concept of the circle of rebirth and all the, you know, the occult, maybe spiritualistic vibes you want to get from it. Not specifically saying anything negative or positive involving that whole circle, but the concept for Grave of Birth was initially getting the two extreme opposites. You know, you have your grave, which signifies the final real resting spot, or so to speak, for someone's life point, and then you have birth itself, you know, where it all starts for someone, or whatever you want it to be. And having those two in the same situation was like a clashing of a meeting of opposites, I guess, if you will, of taking, you know, the end forcefully bringing out the beginning in a grotesque way.
It's a very, very raw and stripped out and bare there. Certainly with the ferocity as well, with the drums on this one too, which come in.
Probably our most old school sounding death metal song off the album, lyric wise and probably performance wise.
Probably the easiest performance out of all of them too, considering what's to come from this album.
Yeah, that certainly comes across, man. And Desolation Fog, yeah, again, I'm going to get nerdy. Oh man, dude, that had my mind going as well, because again, that had me thinking. And sometimes when I used to do like radio shows back in the day, and I'd introduce songs like this from bands, and people would think, God, he's going off on one again. And I can't help it, man, because it just stimulates my imagination. I see it like, you know, we were saying, like a movie in my head, and this fog of decay. And I don't mean to insult you here, Mike, as well. So I'm putting a disclaimer. It's my eccentric, limey humor. But it made me think of like sweaty, smelly creatures dropping to bits, you know.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Dumpster cafe sandwiches served by Multi Match. Yeah, the visuals.
That's awesome.
Thanks, man. I was like,
we're not being too specific on what kind of fog it is, but either way, you ain't gonna like it.
Right.
But I love it when songs like that. I mean, again, old school death bands, you know, do that a lot as well, and I love it when it really brings it to life, and it was like that sense of horror, like those scenes you'd see from those kind of movies, and then there's the music with that, what goes with it, and I was like, man, this has me hooked and drawn in. I'm sure it'd be the same for other people who hear it as well. So, did that vibe when you were recording that one? Did that vibe just come naturally with you both again? You know, once you were happy with the sound.
So
sorry, go on, Mike. Go on, Ricky. Sorry,
I didn't mean to cut you.
No,
off.
it's all right. You go for it. People haven't enough heard me. They want to listen to you guys. Sorry.
No, like the way that we recorded, the way that I learned all the songs. Essentially, this guy sent me, you know, guitars and click tracks, and then I was basically free to, you know, do whatever I wanted on the drums, so long as it wasn't a breakdown.
Hold me to that.
But no, that song, Desolation Fog, was like, I believe it was one of the first ones that I actually finished, because that one for me came like really natural, and I loved the vibe. Like the first time I listened through just the click in the guitar, I immediately kind of already knew what I was going to do with that. I knew there was going to be a lot of blasting there. Like, to me, out of the whole album, that one's probably the most black metal on the album. And that was kind of the vibe I was going with. But again, getting all psycho again, and the visuals that I was getting while I was playing with it was like, you know, probably because it was already called Desolation Fog, but I was just seeing like this like black abyss, and like just this never-ending darkness with like the fog, of course, going through, but like, flashes of like grotesque, like nasty looking, like, I don't want to say monsters, but like, something, and you can't really make out what it is. And then like the way that I wanted to portray that essentially with my performance along with what was already done on guitar. So that's how I came up with it.
Yeah, the vibe for that one kind of just fell into its own thing. Like the music wise, that one was actually thrown for a total loop because of Ricky. The original version of that song before Ricky even touched it on drums was supposed to be more of like almost like that swing kind of jazz feel, but in a metal sense. It wasn't supposed to be nearly as upbeat and hectic and crazy. So when Ricky came in and presented that hectic crazy version, I was like, okay, no, this is it. This is perfect. We're not gonna go do like the chill kind of creepy ominous vibe. It's just guns blazing. And lyrically for that one, the like mindset I had was exactly like what you said, like that creepy ominous fog just kind of trickling in through the waves, and anything it touches just kind of melts and decays under it and just leaves a string of death and decay all in its way. It was very inspired, I guess, like visually in my own head by like those old black and white, like Nosferatu, like the fog and like the black and white movies. It kind of just sits there and hangs. So it was very, I got to have my fun with that song in particular, kind of painting a horror story lyric wise.
Yeah, I think that's why that one grabbed me as well. I enjoyed it for that reason, because there's something to be said about the fog. Yeah, it's a simple effect, I guess, that can be used in like stage plays and movies. But it's like you were saying, Ricky, you there's something there, but you don't quite know what it is.
Right.
I remember
ominous,
yeah. And like that classic movie, I mean, they did I've seen on TV, the original Fog and then the remake. And
and
then it's like, it's all the pirates that appear out the fog at the end, and they've come back for the gold in the church. And I'm like, hey, this might probably a simple thing they did. It didn't look like they had the biggest budget back then, but I'm like, this worked. It added that atmosphere. It added that sense of, look, there's something in there. What is it? I think it was a recent TV series, I believe, about some kind of mist.
They did. Was it Stephen King?
Something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
Because there was a book, and then they did a movie. The movie was great. I didn't see the TV show though.
Yeah.
But I believe it's a Stephen King.
Kills his whole family at the end, and he's about to kill himself, and like all the people come and save him.
Probably. If people didn't see that, Ricky just spoiled it for you.
Well, oh well.
I have a habit of doing that, man. Don't worry. Outside of this show, I co-host it.
That movie been out? If you haven't seen it, it's your own damn fault.
Yeah, I have the same habit, dude, of spoiling the movies, or literally, because it's that excitement. I've got to get it out. And like, I co-host another show, a film review show, and I'm trying to learn not to kind of just recite the entire plot for people.
Man, I can't help myself anymore. I'm too old to change at this point.
That's why I think I'm just saying now, like, the spoilers, and sometimes I say, look, if it's really crud, I'm doing you a service. I'm saving you from the pain of sitting there and watching this thing. So that's the way I do it.
You hated the whole movie and you only like the ending. I just saved you a
That's
bunch
very
of money,
fair.
and now you don't need to see the movie.
Yeah, like Fast and the Furious 10, aka Whack 10, as I call it. And I literally came on and said, look, they're going to make 20 million more of these. So listen, even for fast standards, now they're even scraping the barrel. I mean, to drop some spoilers, in the recent one, in Fast 10, there's like a whole rip-off of Mad Max near the end, featuring John Cena. It's so bad.
And wait, the one before that, like Ludacris and the other dude went to space in Fury.
Yo! In the DeLorean.
Yeah.
Fast and Furious in space.
Yeah,
but like 2 movies ago, Vin Diesel jumped like a Lamborghini out of some kind of skyscraper in Abu Dhabi and landed. Come on.
Yeah, but remember, it's the power of family, isn't it?
You can do it if you have family.
Family.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, there was a point I was going to follow up with this, all to do with that song as well, but that's just escaped out of my mind now.
We got lost in the family. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's right.
Indeed.
It's the spirit of Vin. I'll have to come back to it. It was a point on something one of you said as well.
R.I.P. Brian.
Yeah. You know, there's going to be another 30 million of them. They're just going to make them forever.
They'll be like the Kiss of movies. They'll just continue it with new actors.
Yeah, just a revolving door. You might even get like one or Fast 55 featuring a long distance, a dog that was once owned by Vin or something. Oh god!
Start having Super Bowl subtitles on it now with all the letters in every single Fast and the Furious movie.
Fast and Furious 54.
Yeah. One final ride again, isn't it? So never mind. We'll move on to the next song because I've completely forgotten now. Oh, professionalism. And get into talking about horror and stuff as well, guys. But yeah, I guess mention horror. That gives me the excuse to come to Sulphur. You know, when I was reading about it in the press release, it's that this was the closest you got to the old sound. But this as well, this really was kind of like the quintessential horror song from the entire album. I know there's that theme with all of it, but this one stood out because it was like had me thinking of like, you know, The Omen and all of those kind of movies and stuff with it as well. Other people may interpret it differently, but with having like quite a visual imagination, I always like as I've been saying, see the images in my mind when I hear things. So, and I'd imagine that'd be quite a good one to play live as well, because you could do that atmosphere with it, make it all creepy and dark too. So,
absolutely.
Did you have a lot of fun recording that one? And is that again drawn from the Lovecraftian themes and then traditional horror as well?
Not so much Lovecraftian themes. I'm a big fan of occult mysticism and black magic and all that stuff. It basically for me, Sulphur was kind of I don't know how to make it sound too corny or not, but like almost like your almost anthemic rite of verbally admitting yourself to the fires of hell. So like, you know, you're performing the burning rite of sulfur and you're giving your soul and your allegiance to hell in the underworld and your left-hand path being devout. So for me, that whole song was very old school death metal, I guess, inspired, where you're going straight into like that left-hand path, demonic, you know, Hail Satan kind of stuff. But I wanted to make it almost like a choir-esque kind of thing, because there's a lot of big choral bits. Emphasis on the lyrics were heavily put into that song specifically. So it was a real fun one to kind of pull together.
Yeah, that atmosphere, as I say, it did remind me very much of like those traditional horror movies, stories, as you said, influences in those kind of death metal bands. And again, I don't mean this to poke, I'm not meaning it poking fun at all, but that very like that theatrical way of how that comes to life, literally a horror soundtrack. Yeah. So that was a very interesting one as well. And then there was why am I brain farting again? That's not good. I'm having horror of the mind now. I just realized I went out of order, didn't I? I went Desolation Fog after Sulphur. Anyway,
I'll listen to it all. It's all
yeah. I like to do this with guests, is get into the songs, do deep dives on them. You know, find out how all the creative process. It's always very interesting. So to March from Darkness, again, another song which had me again thinking, and I could be totally off here, but it's just how I kind of the images that come to my mind. I like to do it when I listen to music, is sometimes just not have anything open, but the music itself, I've got, you know, it could be sat somewhere listening to it on my MP3 player or whatever, and just seeing then what I hear in the music the images that come in my mind and how I interpret it, and then that's how I kind of like to, discuss about the music based on that. So it's got that again, the horror vibe again, and it made me think of more zombies, I guess, coming out of the darkness, or an army of creatures or monsters that are coming to attack something or lay siege, say, to a fortress in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Yes, I'm getting amped again. So I'm just wondering, how did you come up with the thoughts behind that song and the music?
That song, it's pretty heavily inspired by a lot of Gustave Doré paintings. So
right.
I read a lot of books. That's my fun. And I really love the Inferno, and seeing like those old Gustave Doré paintings with all like the angels and the demons kind of tussling in the sky. It just kind of reminded me of, it made me kind of picture this concept of what would it really look like being on the opposite side to, I guess you could probably think of this also in relation to Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Yeah.
The Black Gate is finally opening.
Yeah, witnessing that. Yeah.
All that come out, like you're witnessing hell march from the darkest depths. Like how intimidating and how overwhelming does that have to feel and or see? So that was a visually inspiring, the lyrics. And of course, when you have that heavy of a concept in mind, I just tried to make probably the heaviest guitar lines to accompany that almost hectic battle feel of things just going back and forth. And the chorus of "To March from Darkness" has that like almost marching kind of sound to it that you can kind of put together.
Yeah. That comes across in it. It just made me think, could you imagine if somebody was like a war correspondent and they said, right, you're going to be a witness to this battle happening between these forces during the battle of good and evil, or like you said, the Black Gate opening, and to kind of see something like that. I mean, I'm not even going to begin to try and comprehend it, but and then to put that across in a music sense, or like you were saying with Lord of the Rings, that movie. I mean, we know, I think Tolkien is he influenced, I think, by the horrors and battles he saw in, I think it was in World War One.
Yeah, World War One.
Yeah, and and that must have looked hellish with all the trenches and kind of no man's land and seeing what's happening. So, but that's good from an artistic viewpoint, especially metal, that it puts across that real visual imagery, and then you've got the ferocity of the music, like we've been saying. Or people, we were saying off air, people forget with metal, it's very much like theatre and that expression as well, and with the music, and people can get the wrong misconceptions. So that's really interesting to hear, Mike. Definitely a lot in that. So was that another one you both really enjoyed working on together?
For me especially, because like I said, he would send me tracks, he'd send me the click and the guitar, but then he'd send me one with drums that he wrote. And so on that particular song, when I heard the drums that he had written, I knew immediately. I was like, all right, I'm doing something totally different than this. And that one's probably one of the faster songs on the album for me anyway, because like when I am actually practicing that one's the one where I'm like, okay, I need a break now after that one. Like, Jesus.
A rough one.
And our songs tend to be longer as far as, death metal standards and black metal. Well, not black metal, but death metal standards.
Death metal, yeah.
So, it's funny he said Lord of the Rings, though, because, like, I always saw, like, mountains and shit like that, forests and whatnot during that song. So.
Not about all the elves.
Yeah, it's a definitely visually stimulating song, which is one of the consistent themes with the entire album, because it's also now it's just popped in my head and being so nerdy here. And I know not everybody likes all of the Predator movies after Predator 2, but
Predator 2 is my favorite.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go against the grain on that one. I'm gonna take the heat.
I
love
tried
Predator
to
2.
watch Predator 2 because I was like a kid when Predator 1 came out, and that was like a great movie to me. And then Predator 2, I was like,
Come on.
it couldn't do the whole cityscape and everything. Went from a jungle to, I was like, nah, man.
That shows the flaw.
It's such a classic. It's funny, man. Again, off topic moment again, folks. We've this is another set of movies that we've been chatting about on the last few shows, and we had a guy from London come on in a band called Open Sight who like do cinematic metal, and all their stuff's inspired by like horror movies, crime, action, sci-fi, everything. He's a big fan of both the Predator movies, but doesn't like so much the movies after Predator 2. Neither do I, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Well, Predator 2, man, I say this to everybody, and people are going to get so tired of this, but I've got to share it, man. Doesn't Predator 2 have one of the greatest, most classic cinema moments ever? The part with the old lady with the sweeping brush, man, where she's saying there's someone in the bathroom. She comes out, and Danny Glover is like in the middle of having a cardiac arrest. When he gets to her, and he's saying, "No, don't worry, honey, I'm a cop," and she's, "I don't think he gives a shit." And he runs through. Oh man, it was such a moment. That movie, I thought was another classic. It was great. I've actually come across only one or two other people who've put that over the original. But where
Well,
was
you can add me to that list now.
Yeah, where I was going with it was I'm pretty much Predator 1, Predator 2, then Predators, which I was just going to mention, and then AVP 1, and then that's it. Sadly, AVP 2 sucked after 20 minutes. But also, to March from Darkness, and as you were talking, and you mentioned Forrest, Ricky, and it just popped in my mind of when Adrian Brody in Predators, he comes out of the forest and sees that they're on this other planet, and you see like the two moons, and these predators or predator or something is hunting them. And again, that popped in my mind when you were chatting about it, and I thought, yeah, you could see that with that song, like somebody just emerging from the darkness, and there's something behind hunting them or chasing them or force, they can't see. I'm getting so engrossed and lost in the whole feel of the album here, man. But
it's great reactions.
I mean, feel is what you really want out of an album. At the end of the day, that means someone's paying attention to it in more than just, I guess, in a hearing aspect. You're mentally putting these pictures together. So it's really, really making me feel pretty proud of this one.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
Something
You're
that's
welcome.
missing with reactions to people these days, and our society is that instant society. You can have anything you want the minute you want it. You know? So I feel like with everybody having access to so much, they miss the whole point and the whole ideals or visuals, I guess, behind that. What it is that a lot of us do, and it's a bummer because you feel a certain way about things, but then you hear other people hating or whatever they want to say about something, and you're just kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks, but whatever.
Totally. Well, it's one of the foundations and reasons behind Fed Up, behind the show. I make no secret of this. I've only been back doing this for about a fortnight. I've been struggling with mental health issues. I still am for, last 3.5 years. And something clicked in me before this where I thought, I've got to try and get out of that, I guess, horror in a way. And I thought, I miss talking to people from music and film, all genres. I'm going to upset people. Yes, outside of metal, there is other music too, folks. And I find, talking to people like yourselves, the whole creative process behind it, why you're creating that art, what's inspired it, or the feel of it. I thought, man, that's just interesting to me, and I would like other people to hear that from yourselves, especially if anybody has any misconceptions about a particular style of music. Okay, they don't have, no one is forcing them to like it, but if they can see, look, there's a lot of hard work that goes into this, both playing the music, recording, writing, coming up with themes, concepts.
Money.
Booking on studios, seriously, I mean, that's a whole thing. We can get into that, but no, you're totally right. And And I thought, well, let's just make it open to all genres of music, even things I don't like. I thought none of that matters, and let's talk to people and get that out there for folks. The same with film. So, um, pretty much for the the reasons you were saying, Ricky, it was one of the uh, foundations of trying to bring back this show and get people on here talking about what they do.
Right. I feel you on the whole mental health thing for sure, because I struggled a lot with it. In fact, I quit a band thinking that that was going to fix me, and it did not. And I ended up actually having to go and get help.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, I mean, it was also just, a lot. It was a lot of things all compacted into one. But like, yeah,
yeah.
sometimes you really need to just step away for a minute and go fix yourself, and then you can come back and do this and do it at your full mental capacity. So
What doing this is helping as well. Is
oh, it definitely does, but
so, yeah,
I was in such a dark place during that time that
yeah.
if I didn't go and get help, I don't know what would have happened to me, honestly.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, especially with COVID, the isolation people have had. I mean, there's been horror movies have been made focusing on that, like that psychological impact it's had on someone just being isolated, cut off, paranoia that can come from it. There was a German old school death band, one of the very first episodes I did since relaunching the channel, and they did an album called Death Aid, and their album was called Hellgate, and there's a picture of it getting to hell. So first, when you see that, people think, "Oh yeah, demons, everything. This is all about hell, etc." And it was actually all inspired by COVID. Like, are we going to go through this game, this post-apocalyptic, virus-ridden world? Is that going to be the new reality? So it was really interesting hearing, hey, this is what they wrote about, and that they inspired a whole album out of it. So yeah, for sure. Just turning the attention back to your own music. um, the next one, and again, Mike, I could be off with this, but I do this a lot when I listen to music as well. As I said, I like to kind of go somewhere quiet and just see the sense I get, what I feel. An illusory veil. I know this mentions it was inspired by other world studies, I guess in other realms, and that had made me wonder. I thought, would that be anything to do like with not just kind of like cosmic horror and Lovecraft, etc., but like DMT, Third Eye, kind of unlocking uncharted territories, I guess, and that kind of flows with the music about pushing those boundaries and taking that embodiment further. So is the any of that at all wrapped up in it, or completely off?
No, you're pretty much in the right vein there. The only aspect of that is debatable is like the whole DMT thing. I'm not really a big substance person, but I understand
Yeah.
the ritualistic use of it in certain aspects to reach aspects of clairvoyance or open-mindedness. I'm a big advocate for exploring yourself mentally and spiritually as you would do life physically. I really, really like Zolskias philosophy, and I won't get too deep into that, but one key takeaway thing from that is understanding that there's a spiritual self and there's a physical self, and knowing how to appease both of those is going to bring you to true center. And illusory veil is probably a little bit more of a fanatical version of that concept. It's basically coming to oneself of traversing into that spiritual realm and using that to benefit you, but also seeing the obscurities that come forth from opening that doorway.
Mm.
So it's different, but it's very, very fanatical, very fantasy, I guess, concept driven. You can think of it as like slipping between realities as like another gateway.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because there's even been, movies made with people, as you said, slipping between those realities. What is real? What isn't? there was it wasn't very good actually. There was a horror series on Netflix where they were opening, it was set in an apartment building, possibly New York maybe, and they were opening it was kind of like stepping into the mirror world where it was like our reality, but yet something about it just fell off. It was a bit slightly different. And I remember sitting through it and it got to the end and I was like, I've just sat through 12 episodes literally, for that. I was like, man, this had so much potential. And I forget the name now we're live, but it was kind of a bit similar with that kind of vibe. It's pretty good. So musically for this one as well, again, did you already have the music played for it and then added the lyrics on top of it?
Most of the time I usually start with the music first. The lyrics usually come after. I typically start with maybe a song title, which will kind of give me like an idea of maybe the overall like flow of the song. So like Illusory Veil, that might, just looking at the title alone, for me, that was kind of, let's make it a more expressive, maybe open-minded kind of song. So I didn't want to go something more straightforward, like To March from Darkness. You see that title, you think, oh, that's going to be heavy and aggressive.
Yeah.
Illusory Veil, for me, was like, okay, so this one's going to be a weird one. Let's make it a weird one. So the music turned a little bit more expressive, and I was able to mess around with the key concepts and the lyrical content afterwards, once we kind of already pitched this really weird song structure, if you will.
No, it's certainly, it's another one that, again, has that atmosphere to it as well. And again, that's another component that certainly comes across with the whole album. And I was interested when I was reading about sightless vision behind that. Again, the horror, it mentions you kind of being almost like a narrator. And I thought that was quite interesting to read as well, because I thought the whole album, to me, when I listened to it, did come across like, as I've been saying, this extreme metal audio novel or soundtrack to a horror movie. But and I thought some of the images that come to my mind when I was listening to Sightless Vision before I even read anything about it was, I thought it was like, Dawn the Apocalypse, armies marching against everything, truly terrifying. And I thought another angle you could put on that as well is like, if you look in history with some of the cultures that have encountered people with, superior armies and technology, and that must have felt like to them that was literally the end of the world. The apocalypse has come. Here's these strangers I've never seen before who superior in all the weapons, and looks like they possibly could obliterate them. So I'm hoping I don't sound kind of too cheesy here, but I'm just wondering how in this one did you convey the atmosphere and the music together to match that storytelling that I think is prevalent in the album?
That's a good question. I don't really know.
Yeah, long-winded led question there.
I mean, musically, I do want to say musically this one started first again with like the guitars and everything, and I wanted to explore different kind of guitar patterns, I guess, if you will, because there's a lot of songs in metal where it's kind of predictable. It's going to be like, oh, there's 4 repetitions of this. It's something easy and basic, or maybe it's something over the top and predictable, but just something you always kind of notice that's familiar about certain guitar riffs and things like that. So this one, when I was writing the song, I was like, all right, well, I want to use some different chord structures that I wouldn't typically use in a metal song, and then I wanted to put them in almost a classical kind of arpeggiated swinging ebon kind of flow thing. And when I put the chords together, it made this kind of uneasy swing. I guess that's a loose interpretation of how it feels. And I just kind of had fun with the lyrical content for that one because once again, I'm a big Lovecraft fan and a fan of the mythos. And scattered all throughout that song, there's a lot of Lovecraftian references to like Shub-Niggurath, Groth, and several other concepts about, you know, otherworldly evils and entities and things like that that have this almost preemptive kind of far-reaching vision that we'll never be able to comprehend. So the whole like sightless vision thing is relation to Groth being, you know, this planet-sized eyeball that you'll see go through space and kind of forecast apocalypse and things like that. And the forecasting it was doing was awakening Shub-Niggurath, which in Lovecraftian mythos, if I'm correct, is a tree with goat hooves and female breasts and mouths all over it, which also tends to kind of birth evils out into the forest.
Sounds a bit like Slanesh from 40.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, hey,
so like
another excuse.
There you go. Yeah, so like those eldritch gods and those, you know, the elder ones that you hear a lot in Lovecraftian mythos, Warhammer. You even get like elder god related stuff in Tolkien mythology and things like that if you dig deep enough. A lot of that stuff is really inspiring for me. So I really wanted to make like kind of piece together a story for Sightless Vision and related to the weird ebb and flow of the music. I wanted to present a weird ebb and flow with the lyrical content if you were to dig into it.
Yeah, and if you think, man, we're always fascinated by the unknown. So what is looking at us, if you like, from beyond, from the darkness, what is out there? It's that mystery aspect to it, which always makes for a good story in anything, especially in lyrics and music. Yeah.
Aliens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, my nerdy imagination, that I've got 100 million thoughts going all at once in my head at the moment. See, my words aren't even going as fast as my mind, hence why I just made an error as I spoke.
That's fine. I have that problem too. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's naturally being hyper as well, but it's like all those shows that do where they go sometimes looking at what's that one, the ranch, what's on at the moment, Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh
there you go.
Yeah, and all of those kind of shows, or they'll go out looking for UFOs or mysterious creatures, Devil Man, all of that, Mothman, all that stuff. I remember there was one where it was just, I don't know where they were, they're absolute pitch black darkness, and they were saying it'd been there so many times, and then one night they thought something actually looked back in them, could see their eyes spooked. Yeah, it could have been a deer or anything, we don't know, but it's that, I think, fascination of the unknown with human beings, which we've had since the dawn of time, and the mystery to it, like what is there. I mean, there's so many avenues you could go with it. What's at the bottom of the ocean, depths is there. So I think that adds that.
We need to make a submarine that is capable of going down the Mariana Trench. There's something down there. There totally is. It's got to be.
Thing is, I was just
hold all the secrets.
That's a horrifying concept. We know more about space than
I love
our
the
own
ocean. I'm not scared of it. I've been in the ocean, very far out, deep to the bottom, snorkeling. It's fun. I'm not scared of the ocean. I'm not.
I won't.
I probably should be, but I'm not.
Yeah. Until you see a giant squid come up. But it's funny you mentioned that. I was just about to say, I think that's a very alluring, attractive quality for you to have as musicians, because it's got that bit of mystery. I get people listening. But you mentioned the ocean. I'll have to behave myself or the band will kill me. But towards the end of September, there's another Black and Death band actually due on. I think they're touring in the States at the moment. They're from Austria. And they base all their music on the depths of the ocean, like what is possibly down there, and they bring in the horror aspect as well.
Right.
And all I can say is they've got an idea that they want to do when they come on, and I can't say anything else about it, or it'll just ruin it all. Hopefully it works, but it's a pretty cool idea that they put to me, what they were coming up with, and I was like, yeah, man, that sounds awesome. Yeah, let's do it. But again, like you guys with that different approach, them doing it on the ocean, okay, it could be a simple thing, but I thought, well, here's something different. They're going to focus on a different area and write everything about like the mystery of the unknown depths of the oceans around the world. So I thought, yeah, I can get behind that. That's awesome. That's got me nerding already. So coming back to yourselves again, I'll try and breathe. Man, hope you want to come on again after the show.
Dude, let's come
Absolutely.
back
This
and then
is
we'll
fun.
just talk about movies.
Yeah, we'll have a horror,
Let's just
horror
do
sit
that.
down.
Dude, I'm not kidding, right? I'm gonna seriously, I'm gonna have to try and get something organized because I'm not kidding, man. Every band that's come on so far, most of them have said to me, "Oh, we've got to get something set up where we can just have a movie-thon, talk about horror movies, get some people on from different bands or whatever." And I'm thinking, how am I going to go about doing this? Everyone.
We're just gonna have to have a big, massive video chat
There is
day.
something to that with musicians and like movies and things like, that are just so, to other people just so outside. It's mostly, I think, too, because like obviously we're musicians and we try to become something because we don't want a day job. Day jobs suck. Like, and movies are a way to escape all that, and you get to express yourself in a movie or connect with something in a movie. And same with music, same with comedy, same with so many facets of life that I really think it's almost like an escape for people. And we're all similar in that way to where you get us all in a room and you probably won't hear one thing about music. Somebody's going to bring up one thing about, say, Predator again. That's it. We're going down a rabbit hole of all kinds of different movies. Like,
you're right. It's that escapism, and it crosses over a lot. You get so many metalheads in the independent film scene. You'll get people who are in a band but are also in the film scene in some way as well. All crosses over, and I mean, having an interest in those areas anyway, and then I get together with people like yourselves. That's it. It's why the show always goes off topic, but so far, people seem to like the open free flow that we can go from that and then back to the music. I'm just sat here sometimes thinking, I'm not promoting the music enough. We've been sat here talking about, whatever horror or sci-fi.
Go listen to it. Tell us what you think.
It's a man does. We're we're only on here. Was something you said though about movies then, which I was going to comment on. Anyway, it'll come back, I'm sure. But the other thing I was interested to read was that it says King of Worms was featured in the Tucson, Arizona Army Man project, which is put together by Rudy Flores, which features numerous artists and artisans representing Tucson in arts and culture. And then when I was reading this press release as well, it said that was brought to life as an Army Man figurine. So that's really cool, and it's got like that testament to people involved in in the arts round for the local scene. It must have been quite an honor there.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much Rudy is a really good friend of mine, and he's always been a big supporter of King of Worms. And it was a really cool ability to get to bring Ricky and our then bassist at the time, Derek, and we actually got our little figurines. Like, I'm stashed up here on my desk, actually. I don't know if you can really see them that well, but little army man.
Oh, man, nice. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was wild. I went to a local restaurant here and walked in, and there was a case of them. And just to be able to see yourself, you're just right there in a case full of everybody that's participated was pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And, the fact that all sorts of people get to see that. They may not know who you are, but they saw you.
There was even a little art exhibit, too. Like,
Right.
Rudy got a special opening to where you can go in. There's like the little name cards underneath every figurine that would give you like a background to whoever was there. Like, there was painters, there was musicians, there was chefs, there was videographers, there's sculptors, any kind of like artist or someone that's really part of the Tucson, Arizona, and also I think some people were even from Phoenix, Arizona. It was kind of just like this big cultural get together, an example of how close knit the Arizona artist circle is.
Well, it's good. It's promoting the community and it's encouraging that mutual respect. And I think I butchered the pronunciation as well. Did I say Tucson? Sorry.
You're not the only one.
No, I believe a lot of people still pronounce
People
it as
always
that.
switch the T and the C, or the C and the S. So yeah.
Yeah. But believe it or not, you wouldn't believe this. I'm studying a few languages, and then at times it seems I forget how to speak English. So it's like, not that I could anyway. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting to read. So the closing track, What Time Has Wrought. Again, this was an interesting one to read about. It's like. It says in the press release, it's a spiritual sequel to the ascendance of a continual one from the first album. Definitely has, the acoustic work is mentioned, so there's a lot of that moody atmosphere with it. So is this the way that you wanted to close out the album, to have something that would put that kind of atmosphere across to people, sort of like, man, that's a memorable album. We've gone through all the brutality. There's certainly, all those ferocious drums, Ricky, which are awesome. But it just gives something people maybe to ponder on. Stays in the mind like, man, that was quite an interesting end. It's again, I could be going the wrong direction. It was just kind of the impression I had.
You're totally right. The minute he sent me all the songs, I was like, yep, that one's gonna be last 13, 14 minutes. I was like, I don't even know how to begin to like approach this one, but it was all just my own fears and everything, because it actually turned out pretty damn awesome, and it ended up not being very hard at all. None of the music to play to or write was hard at all, because it was it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, like this style and everything. So, but for me, that song, like I said, I was super intimidated by it at first, but once we laid it down and everything, I was pretty proud of it. But it's all over the place, like you said, there's acoustic elements, there's death and black metal all over, and then it goes back to quiet again. It starts quiet, it's this like chaos in the middle, and then ends quietly, so but it was a good way to end the album, I think. And the length of it too as well. I've always been a big fan of like long, like epic songs at the end of albums, so it was awesome that we got to do that.
Yeah, again, it's like it's very cinematic, as we've been saying about movies throughout. It gives it that edge. I don't know, have you heard the band Hylung?
Oh yeah, Hylung. Yeah, most definitely.
Fantastic band, and they've got kind of that similar. I know it's different music, but similar kind of vibe, and I get the same feels from the closing track that I do from Hylung, where it's it's got that atmosphere to it, and it makes me think as well. It makes me remember what I've listened to, thinking, well, that was a nice way to close it off. Yeah, I'll remember to go back to it. And it's one, and this is no ego stroking, but I think it shows the versatility that you've both employed into the album and into the songs, where you're drawing from these different avenues. And it's a real nice, fitting way to end it. And give something people to think about, remember, and say, look, this isn't just, the typical Furious Onslaught, or the, like, we're going to do, 20-minute length songs or whatever. And, there's a lot there to it to unpack. So, yeah, that's certainly the impact it had on me as well. Not if anybody could tell the way I've been nerding about it.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, It means a lot.
No, you're both well. It's the way, like I said, it's the way I approach music of all genres. Even if it's something I don't know about, the way I like to listen to it for the music itself. I try to avoid, it sounds like this band, it sounds like this artist. If you like this one, you'll like this. It's like a bit of mixed it would be. I'm like, no, even if I can hear that element, I want to listen to it for what it's worth, because I don't want anything else to influence my thought process either. We've got too many distractions around us as it is. So sometimes, and this is going to sound like I'm being really arrogant and disrespectful. I'm not. Sometimes I'm like, I'd rather not even have the press release in front of me. I will just literally listen to the music for itself and then make up my own mind from what I can hear. And it's the way I do these shows, as natural and organic as possible. Like we're just hanging out somewhere, because I want that authenticity and genuineness to come across. The same with the music. So no, this is just everything. When I was listening to it, I had it when I went out for a run, listening to it on my headphones, thinking, right, what can I hear? Because I just completely go in my own zone when I'm training or running, block everything out. It's almost in a way of a more active form of meditation in a way, I guess, because you do. So no, I hope you get a good reaction from folks, that they hear a lot of the same things. So I'll ask, have other people heard some of the things that we've been talking about, and what's the response been like so far?
It's been pretty positive. I mean, we initially released in AEONS on Slam Worldwide, and I think the general consensus of everyone that commented was it's good. There were a couple people that put some wacky comments in there, like one guy said he was going to abuse women or something like that. I didn't get that. And then one guy basically called him like a dirty Sanchez. So I don't know. I don't know.
It sounds like there's always one, isn't there?
There's there's some haters,
the internet.
and then luckily YouTube has the translate thing, because there was some people writing in Spanish and some other language, but those were the positive ones. And one guy that one of the earliest positive ones I really remember was a guy wrote right after somebody was like, sorry, I can't get into this, it's only 2 dudes, and the guy right after was like, no way, dude, this is awesome. Like, so that was good to hear. But yeah, it's been mostly positive, and I've probably been annoying to like all my friends and people in the music scene that I know, that I'm telling everybody like, yo, dude, go check out our stuff, I can't wait for you to hear it. But honestly, like, I am so super proud of everything that we've done on this, that like I really wanted people to hear it, and I'm glad they finally got to hear the song. But it's only one song, there's still more to come. So
yeah, I was going to ask you about that as well. Well, that's good to hear, man. I mean, maybe not say this on you. I was about to say something in Spanish, but maybe not, because YouTube might. I'll behave. Yeah. I was going to say, if you read well, I'll tell you off air later. But if you read that, then that would be a worry about. So you just said there you've got more stuff to come. So I'm going to throw this curveball out there, I guess. So are you going to explore more of the same themes and interests, or are you simply just going to play it and just see what happens and see what you come up with?
I mean, right now we're putting this out, but we have like 2 songs pretty solidly going for the next one, and possibly a third. I think you said you had that.
3 or 4.
Yeah. So yeah, we're plugging right away. I don't know conceptually or lyrically what it's going to be yet. I don't.
No, right now we're kind of all up in the air about it, but the key thing we're taking away from this one is, I know we had a huge gap from Lord of Thorns, our first album, to this one, because we were trying to figure out like our working aesthetic. Like, we were trying to build an actual full band. We had another member in the group, a bassist at one point, but he wasn't able to keep up with us. So we boiled down to just me and Ricky, but now we know that's how we work really well. So we're pretty much going to let this album take its ride, and we're just going to gun into the next one from here. We've got about 3 to 4 songs already written. We don't want to lock ourselves down to keeping up traditions.
Yeah.
But yeah, we pretty much want to leave the whole situation open for however it flows in the future.
I think the only thing that we were planning on, or I had mentioned a continuation on, was like furthering the concept that we had in the video, and building off of that.
Yeah.
But musically, yeah, no, nothing definitive yet. Songs, but nothing.
Yeah, but you've got something there and something to build on, man.
Yeah,
And that's
fucking awesome.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect it to say. Well, he's not going to sit here and say it sucks. I'm like, oh no, but that's good to hear.
I can't wait till I get behind my kit and play them. They're really good.
It's just needless to say, we're ready to go on the next one already.
Yeah.
This one's not even done yet.
Yeah.
Put in some breakdowns on another one. I'll go even higher.
No breakdowns.
Our friend Gaz like this,
Right.
Dave, because
Maybe we'll sneak one in just for good measure.
Like
Yeah,
you blink, you miss. It's gonna be like that quick. It'll be like,
It's gonna have that classic. Was it the ride bell? The ding,
Yeah.
ding.
But you see, I'm getting more excited because what's coming to my mind as well, like with the breakdowns, and you've got like all those, Holy Terror bands as well, from metallic hardcore. Oh man, some of that stuff's awesome as well. Anyway, I'm trying to behave myself again. So I was going to ask, what you mentioned there, Derek Page, who was with you briefly, session basis. Would you recruit another permanent member into the band? I would imagine it has to be the right fit, right chemistry. Obviously you can share the ideas with, go back and forth, agree to disagree when necessary as well, all that stuff.
We've talked about a situation coming up where we're asked to play live, and we're not necessarily against it. We do have an idea of 2 people I think that we would want to bring in and see if we can't make it happen. But I don't know, as far as recruiting anyone recording wise, I don't think that would be. I don't know. I think that you're adding. We created this together with him. Planning on doing the bass parts, but he ended up being unavailable and all that. So we finished it, just me and Mike here, and so I think that's how we'll probably continue to write and record from here on out. But if the situation arises where we play live, I think we have a pretty good idea of who we want. It's just a matter of if they want to do it or not.
Yeah, and getting like schedules and everyone on board, because the one real problem I'd say we've had, especially like lineup wise and whatnot, is we'll find people who are good fits and who want to be a part of it, but personal life just gets in the way. Like Derek was with us, and he's a really, really good friend of ours still to this day, even though he's not fully here anymore. Like, we didn't leave on bad terms or anything.
Not at all.
It was either finish the album or stay on hiatus until Derek would get free. And we both kind of decided collectively that, we would just move on. And, if things get better, they'll get better and he'll come back. But at this point, we're pretty self-sufficient with just the 2 of us, that it might be easier to just keep this as like a main focus.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to performing live, we'll have those people we can rely on. But it's kind of like adding in more barriers. It's not something we really want to plan on in the future.
Right.
I think,
and the fact that we don't have a rehearsal studio anymore, that's great, because my
Oh,
drums
damn.
they're not 10 miles from my house. Like that's a big game changer there too.
Yeah, I hear you, and it's the sense I'm getting. This is a really special, important project, very close to both of your hearts. So if it was ever bringing anybody in, then and this is no disrespect to Derek either, it's got to be the right person. It's got to be the right fit, because you don't want any potential conflict or somebody that doesn't get what you're doing. It's got the vision, says, no, I want to do it like this, no matter what, we're going to do this. Yes, we all can have our different interpretations and ideas, but you've still got to will not stray. I know I'm kind of contradicting myself as we've been chatting about stepping outside the box, but not kind of stray too far, or then it's not really King Ov Worms. It's something completely different. It's not that band at all. So, definitely can recognize that. When you first got in touch with me, Mike, and I think one of the first things I said to you was, man, I like the name, because I hadn't heard of you before. So I'm just curious, what inspired the name? Is it horror based? That's me.
No, it's a little historically based, I guess, if you will.
Right.
When we were kind of coming together with the original concept of this group way back in like, I think it was like 2015, maybe, when I started the idea for this, I was in another prog metal band called Pain Patterns, and it wasn't that heavy. So I wanted to make a more extreme group. So I partnered up with our bassist at the time, Raymundo. And when we did this King of Worms project, it didn't have a name yet. We were tossing around ideas. It was supposed to be like an extremely aggressive, almost kind of abrasive group, kind of like Watain, where, you know, people see Watain, they're like, okay, they're evil. we wanted to have that same interpretation, so we wanted an aggressive name. And the one that I pitched was the Lord of Thorns, because I was trying to make, you know, a reference towards Jesus Christ, you know, with the thorns on the halo or whatever on his head, the little crown of thorns. And then Raymundo pitched King of Worms, because I guess that was an actual slanderous term that was used to refer towards Jesus Christ, a king of worms, a king of nothing. So we ended up kind of rolling with that one, but I changed the spelling a little bit just to, you know, make it more black metal. And I wanted to change the worm into the kind of like the wyvern worm spelling interpretation.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was the
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a bit of a fantasy nerd. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Yeah,
but I mean, plus the spelling looks more enticing that way too.
Fantasy is awesome. I wondered if it had that fantasy element to it. Love fantasy as well, and the dark fantasy as well, which is especially good because people often think, all right, it's just the cheesy side of fantasy, which there's nothing wrong with, but there's also all that dark fantasy and again, fantasy horror too. So I wondered if it was to do with that, because I thought it kind of, my imagination kind of had this thought again, he's off again, of like this king, say, in a throne room, you know, his castle, and like he's I tell you what it actually made me think of, you know, in Lord of the Rings, and where's the king? Is it in the Two Towers where I think he's under, is it Sauron or Saruman's control, and he's like he's like really in hell. It made me think of that, actually, of a king kind of in that position, which is why I said I thought that's a pretty cool name. Just shows how much of a nerd I am as well.
I mean, I love that interpretation. I'm a Tolkien nerd through and through. D&D, Tolkien, Dragon Age, Dark Souls, Berserk, you name it. If it's a dark fantasy or some kind of fantasy, I probably read it and or play the games for it.
Yeah, same. Bloodborne, all of those as well.
Classic.
Yeah, that has a brooding atmosphere for sure, especially when you first encounter those huge big dudes with the double-handed weapons. I think it's when you first go in the city near the start.
And old Yarnum.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. Going off topic again, have you seen the new Dungeons and Dragons movie? Is it particularly?
I have, and I'm gonna admit that I genuinely loved it.
Oh, you did?
I thought it looked
a little cheese, but maybe I should check it out.
It's totally cheese,
is it? Okay,
but like that's the
but in
thing.
a good way.
You have to look at it. It depends on how you want to look at it. You have those people that play D&D like 100% serious, and then you have those goofballs that play D&D. It's like if you got those goofballs and made a movie about those goofballs, it's 100% that. Okay, right. And it's fantastic.
All right,
I absolutely adored it.
Check it out.
We've been chatting. Sorry, go on, Mike.
Oh no, my bad. I was gonna say there's actually a lot of practical effects. There's not like a lot of the monsters were like costume effect and not really CGI, and I appreciated it a whole lot more for that.
Well, again, as we were saying it, I think in some of the movies we run about earlier, it kind of brings that more realness. And I'm going to drop spoilers on this, folks, but I can't contain myself. With this movie's been brought up a lot as well with recent guests, just not. And there's a scene in it, Ricky. Got to tell you about this, man. There's a pot belly dragon, this overweight dragon. Yeah. And it's kind of like a Mines of Moria scene, and it can't fly because it's too big. It can't breathe fire. It's one of the funniest things I've seen. And it has this ridiculous name as well. which Chris Pine introduces it, and it's worth it for that. And then another one, spoiler again, near the start, it's got like your typical fantasy kind of group, and they're in this prison, and they're kind of up in front of like a review board for release, and they end up, they're waiting for one of the judges to arrive, who's like this giant Birdman, and they grab the Birdman and they escape, by pushing the Birdman out the window. But then what makes it even funnier is they were going to release them anyway. Honestly, it's as Mike said it best. Look, I would love for them to do a movie all about Stewart and in the Underdark, how he escaped, because it's such a grimy society that he grew up in, and how he gets out of there. So I'd love to see that. But on the cheesy side, and I know this when I've played D&D myself, I am definitely one of those goofballs that has been the idiot that has annoyed like the really kind of super focused, no, you must play this without smiling players, like playing as a rogue, following someone around for the night, hiding in plain sight and calling them naughty names and stuff. Like, oh, you fucking just, yeah, for no reason at all, or shape-shifting into stupid real-life world objects like as a sign, go, or...
I mean, I've been surrounded by friends who play D&D and Magic the Gathering and everything, but like, I'm a creator. I like to create things, and I do get into fantasy and stuff. In fact, I have a whole like power metal like concept album that's basically in my head that I would like to write someday, and it's all about a friend of mine who went through a terrible divorce. So I wrote it as she's like this princess that's held against her will, against her ex-husband, who's this like lord of the land and doesn't like, want to let her out and stuff. So it's this whole like epic. It'll be called Lady Hoffman. Shout out to Stacy. And it's all about her and her terrible divorce. But like, I wrote a whole story about it. She read it. She fucking laughed about it, loved it. So yeah, I just need to make it happen. But yeah, I create things. I don't know.
No, but that's awesome though, because it's like, oh man, no, I can nerd about this, playing and creating as well. There's so much you can draw from those worlds. The same with the 40k, which we've got the classic bolt thrower inspired 40k and some other bands as well. I would love to see more death metal, especially brutal death and deathcore, inspired by 40k, because it's perfect for it. It's absolutely perfect. Think of, you could put bolt gun samples in there of the tracks too.
Your industrial death metal kind of thing going on, or Warhammer inspired stuff.
It's absolutely built for it, and I'm thinking, look, there's a whole lore there. Okay, I know Games Workshop, they can get kind of a bit difficult, when people are trying to do fan films and stuff based on their IP. But even if you have to just change the names a bit, there was a power metal band we spoke to recently, Skullforge, and he did a whole concept album of I think the Astra Militarum it was possibly. And it was pretty awesome stuff. So yeah, I'm totally, with you guys on that. And I've nerded so much and gone off topic so much. I forgot what the original point was.
We need that feedback for just a total off topic like podcast.
I've got to get, man. Now you're another band who said it. I've got to get some kind of schedule together and get in touch with these cats, like such as yourselves, who said they want to kind of do this movie nerdathon, random off-topic gathering, and kind of set it up as some conference. Here's this band, and it'd be chaotic, but it'd be fun.
It sounds like a blessing in the worst ways. I'm 100% down.
yeah, man. Honestly, I can talk about this stuff for hours, as people are probably witnessing. And another thing I had to behave myself on earlier, Ricky, was when you mentioned The Undertaker and wrestling. This just gives me my perfect excuse to go on my own propaganda. Don't forget, folks, tomorrow, AEW All In at Wembley. Remember
are
that.
You going to that?
Oh, no, sadly, couldn't get to it, but I've got the pay-per-view. I've got friends who are coming over. So literally tomorrow I will be unavailable. Dude, it looks insane. Just the card, and it's going to be 80,000 people there. They'll have all the pints going crazy.
Adam Cole, MJF.
Yeah, man. all of it. You've got Blackpool Combat Club, Santana and Ortiz have come back.
Yeah, they're back. Hell yeah.
I think they're doing a Stadium Stampede match.
Who's Jericho got?
Do you know, man? He's got a tough one. He's got Will Ospreay.
That's right. All right. Yeah.
That is
gonna be a good one.
Yeah, he's going to have to bring it for that because.
Dude, I'll come back and nerd out with you on a professional wrestling podcast. Let's go.
Definitely, dude. Sorry, Mike. I know you're supposed to be about your band.
It's been a hot minute since I've been wrestling.
They're like in the emails, oh yeah, man, we're getting the deep dives about the songs and everything, and it's like, yeah, I've kind of been like a passenger in my own interview now.
I'm sitting back and enjoy it. Count me as a listener at this point.
But you know, like we were saying with metal and the whole horror theater and how it's an escape for people, and we all want to do this and this kind of thing like we're doing now because it's that just enjoyment and it's bringing those passions and interests and visions to life. That's why I love wrestling so much, because of the escapism. I love the humor. I love even the backyard wrestling, the over the top.
I was a part of one when I first moved here.
Oh, dude! Tell
High Impact Wrestling, shout out. I don't know if they're around anymore, but man, they were fucking insane. I sucked. I completely sucked. I only had like 2 matches, and it hurt. And these guys were throwing themselves through barbed wire off this dude's mom's roof. Like they had like this shitty ring built in the back, and they eventually went more professional and started actually having like matches in like legit like places like the roller hockey arena and stuff. But like, no, it started in this dude's like backyard, and it was insane. These dudes were like bleeding everywhere, throwing themselves through light tubes, barbed wire, off of cars. Like it was insane. They were even featured in the local news here because the backyard wrestling thing got super popular there for a while in like the mid 2000s. So
have you ever seen GCW with Nick Gage?
Absolutely.
Oh, bro, seriously, isn't it insane?
MDK all fucking day.
It's like the spiritual sequel to ECW.
Oh, for sure, yeah, absolutely.
Their matches the same when they're hitting each other. The strobe lights as well, and sometimes they put their events up for free on YouTube. I remember there was one that did. I think it was from about 2 years ago, possibly. I think it was on the West Coast, and this faction, when they won the match, it meant like GCW and controlled that city. The commentators were going as crazy, and I always remember telling my friends, I'm sure the crowd started chasing one of the wrestlers out of the venue. It's like, this is out. And I said, dude, it's insane. You've got to watch it. But it's just why it's just that escapism, the purposely over the top choreographed violence, but it's almost like watching very well acted stunt work.
Yeah.
And people forget, because I watch MMA and everything as well. I watch it all, and people will be like, "Oh yeah, wrestling's fake," and I'm like, "Dude, right? It's
predetermined. Let's put it like that. Everything else that happens in between, knowing who's going to win, you can't really fake.
The impacts are real.
Right.
The injuries are real. The tour schedule is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And from what they put their bodies through, all for our entertainment as well. And then that ability to go out there, and again, not all of them can do it, or they'll have a manager or whatever, but to hold that crowd as well on the mic and get that atmosphere. And I tell you, man, I am so pumped for tomorrow. I'll probably send you an overexcited email about it. Say, man, did you see it? Did you see it? I think the Stadium Stampede match in Wembley is going to be insane. I just know how nuts people are going to be there tomorrow. I think it's going to be. I'm not just saying that because it's coming over here, but it's because the amount of tickets that have been sold. I'd say the same if it was in one of the biggest stadiums, where they hold the Super Bowls, for example.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I'm familiar. That's a huge place. And honestly, having like another wrestling federation and not having to watch WWE day in, day out has been so nice. And like even the fact that like GCW, a place like, it's a much smaller federation, but it's still around. Like my favorite thing about GCW is Matt Cardona. Like that guy got fired from the WWE and he was kind of a dork. And now he's this totally like complete different change of character, cursing out the crowds, having death matches with Nick Gage. Like it's amazing.
It's the same. He's good. He recently, I think, did a promo on MLW
Yeah.
was in NWA as well, and that was you see, this is what I try and say to people who was still the only way is WWE. I'm like, look, the Attitude and Aggression eras are the best aspect of WWE ever. I still watch it. There's elements I still like. Shout out to Bray Wyatt, rest in peace, and
I know
Terry Funk.
so bad. You would have liked his character. He was like a super dark, like evil dude. You'd also like another guy named Aleister Black. He's darker than Bray Wyatt. Yeah, Aleister Black's really dark.
Yeah, we're gonna have a wrestling day. Yeah. They get me back into it.
Oh, dude, honestly, he's a metalhead as well. I think he goes by Malachi now.
Yeah, Malachi Black.
Yeah, and he has it's like a blackened Belgian sludge band do his theme as well.
Oh, the other dude that's in his faction, the really big tattooed guy, he's the singer of a hardcore band. Yeah.
Oh, Brody. Oh man,
Brody. Yeah.
Brody, yeah. Oh, my kid love him. The whole they've got the whole dark fantasy aspect to them.
Yeah.
I'm in.
He wears like a whole mask and everything. Like they have the Leviathan cross on a bunch of their stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Just look like a load of like dark chaos warriors or fantasy warriors coming out. All the lights go off and then they've got all the costume on stood there, and they really have this brooding, menacing appeal because they're all big dudes. They're capable as well. I mean Malachi, Icky Alistair's legit martial artist too, and you can tell it's definitely worth getting behind. But as you were saying, Ricky, the fact that now we've got something else outside of WWE, because no disrespect to them, but it's not what it was. And we all can like what we like, music, whatever, none of that matters. But it's nice that we've got an alternative that I feel is back to more the wrestling that we were missing, a bit more gritty, a bit more edgier, a bit more focus on the wrestling, where I can see people that look like they can actually wrestle. Right. That can come to bad booking, and I hear the whole booking with AEW sometimes can be a bit off as well. But it's nice to look at a good.
I mean, it's so new; they're still figuring it out.
Yeah, it's nice to see good competitive matches as well, and the humor. Like one of my favorite memories in recent years was when Chris Jericho, when all the Shimosa went on him. That was hilarious.
What AEW does too, like keeping the win-loss record and all that, because that always mattered to me when I was a kid watching wrestling. Like, how many wins does this person have? Like, I don't know, because the WWE never did that.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of cool shit. Yeah.
Again, that's what we were saying. Like with your music, it's just adding that little bit different. We were saying, as you said, Mike, with one of your professors at college said, look, no one is ever going to be like 100% original now, but you can add in little differences that make you an alternative, say, to that band. And this is what AEW are doing with the wrestling. I mean, to think they've sold 80,000 tickets. I can't remember what the full capacity is, but it could even hold more than that. This is crazy. This is crazy for a wrestling show. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's supposed to be considered a smaller, like, independent company.
Yeah. You guys had me at something different than WWE for once, because I mean, after a while, that's why I stopped watching it. It just got sterile. It became simple.
I DVR WWE. It saves a lot of pain, and then I just fast forward through it and watched a few decent parts. And the only good parts in recent years, and it's the whole thing that's been carrying for me, it's been the Bloodline, Roman Reigns. So literally is like the start and end of SmackDown, which is usually the Bloodline, and that was it. Everything in between, there's fast forward.
All the filler, yeah,
it really is. So it's nice you've got these other choices, but I'm a fanatic about it, man. I watch them all, Impact, all of them. If there's pay-per-views or I can get a chance to go and see a show, I'll do that. And again, crosses over with metal so well as well. There's loads of metalheads in wrestling. Play a backyard wrestling show or something.
I don't know that they're even around anymore, but
we'd have to wait till it's not 110 degrees at
least.
Yeah. Here. I'll pass on that one.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. Yeah, definitely.
After the summer we had, we'll be lucky to have a cold winter.
What is we were saying off air? That's what's crazy is everywhere's getting so hotter. But when I saw the news about what was happening in Arizona was like the hottest place on earth anyway, and I'm like, geez, to think it's getting even hotter. I thought, man, that is I mean, I think I'd die just walking outside.
I mean, we're considering what the temperatures have been. Like I said before, today's a pleasant day at 104. So that's, I mean, you could literally walk outside and feel the difference. Like, it's hot, sure, but you're like, oh, it's not brutally hot.
It's not like there's a
Yeah.
blanket
Yeah.
of heat pushing down to the pavement.
Because some of the days when it was like super hot, the wind was blowing too. So that really sucks.
Yeah.
Like, literally sucks the breath out of you. Just it's so hot. It's just disgusting. And then it
Yeah.
makes the rain not. We get rains in the summertime, and it's really nice when those happen and roll through because it substantially cools everything off. You can go from like 106 day, and after a monsoon rolls through, it'll go down to like the mid 80s.
Yeah.
It'll still be humid as hell, but it'll be much cooler.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Just to ask you a few quick randoms on your music again, because getting paranoid. I'm nerding so much. You know, when you do get those moments where you're playing the music and you're like, man, this doesn't quite feel it, or you're writing mic and you're thinking, I can't seem to get these ideas out at this time. You know, how do you get past those blockages?
It's kind of hard to say. I would say the one thing that I try not to do that I used to do a lot was try to like muscle my way through it. I remember like before, you know, you'd be creative and then you'll hit like your writer's block kind of thing.
Yeah.
I used to try to just force my way through it and kind of complete something because I have this weird tendency to feel the need to have to finish a song from start to finish, at least conceptualized in the same sitting. I had a hard time starting a song like one day and then sitting on it 2 days later and then finishing it. That always felt weird to me. So usually when I would have those writer's block moments, I would force myself to finish the song. But lately, I've been trying to change that aspect and kind of just sitting back and kind of just let things go for a while and then come back to it. It's been a lot more beneficial that way. I have even taken chances now at completely restructuring a song. I think on this album, The Womb of Borealis, I want to say Illusory Veil, Sightless Vision, and Sulfur were entirely different lyrical songs before we ended up with what they are on the album. I tried something and it just didn't work out. So I was like, all right, well, let me crumble up that paper, throw it away, and let's just start all over again and see where it goes. And it might suck at first, but you'll come up with something noticeably better in the long run.
So you've just got to, I guess, keep going, just keep refining, editing, like with all writing. I would imagine the same with playing until you get right, the same with the drums. I mean, Ricky, you've got some furious moments there, but I know you said you were from a deathcore background. Hey, good as well. But anyway,
I mean, honestly, for me, like doing things the way that we do them here within King of Worms was actually beneficial for me because in past bands, we wrote as a band together because like we'd have a rehearsal space. So if we wanted to write new music, you had to do it right then and there, and because you weren't going to practice till the next week or whatever. So, it was frustrating for me if like certain songs weren't making sense or if I just couldn't play a part because obviously, guitarists would get more accustomed to their pieces quicker than I would. And, it would just be frustrating. Whereas with this, I had the recording, I had a click. If I couldn't play something, I could just leave it, go do something else and, come back to it, which another thing that during all this I found to help me out too is I don't even play if I'm gonna like sit down and practice our songs for like the first hour because I usually sit down and play the drums for 3-4 hours. So before I even sit down as I sit down, before I even play King of Worms music, I will go through and play like just drumless tracks randomly that I find on YouTube. I'll go like I like to play to like certain like cumbia or like disco stuff, or like I'll even play some like Bruno Mars and like all those crazy like just something that's not metal, and get warmed up that way, and then sit down and play the metal stuff because in the past like I would just sit down and start trying to play metal completely cold, no stretching, no nothing. And then, you know, your arms are like completely stiff, filled with blood. You can't move hardly, and you're all locked up because you didn't warm up. And so, yeah, that's been pretty beneficial.
Yeah, and that's interesting to hear as well, because I like the fact that you're saying this is how I warm up by non-metal as well for the rhythm. There's that song on Bruno Mars where it's in the video. There's a couple of them like in New York. Something that's got like this really old school kind of soul vibe to it. It's really
My
catchy
go-to
as
Bruno
well.
Mars song is Treasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's funny too, because I'll take it and I'll do this thing where like I'll probably play the first verse and play the drums the way they go, and then for the rest of the song I'm just, you know, improvising and going, you know, something that fits, sure, but like it's not the way the song is traditionally played on drums. So
you know what's refreshing to hear, man? And again, this is no ego stroking here. It's nice to hear someone come out and say, and I'm not attacking the whole metal community here or anything, but to say, hey, it's okay to like other music. Do listen to other music. It doesn't.
Oh, dude, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah,
man. I used to be that guy. Like, no, I only listen to metal now.
Yeah.
Dude.
Oh, dude, we all go through. I'm going to be straight up here, right? I used to, when I was first getting extreme music, I used to be just death metal is Lord, nothing else. And now I absolutely love hardcore. That's been my favorite music for a long time, and I used to be. Again, I don't want to upset you here, Mike. I'm putting plenty of disclaimers. I didn't used to be a black metal fan at all. Just couldn't get with it. There's still a lot of it I can't get into, so I prefer to look for bands that do something a bit different, a bit picky. I do like a lot of the cosmic black metal theme bands because of the sci-fi and sci-fi horror stuff. I remember a few years ago when this show had another name, when I was kind of trying to do, you know, interviews with bands, and there were a British black metal band called Full Macarius, and again, I still wanted to, you know, talk to them, and it was one of the members I talked to at the time. And I was saying, you know, I don't like black metal, and then I thought, since then, I found elements within that scene that I do like. So I think it's keeping that open mind. And you might be thinking, well, I've got misconceptions about this genre. There'll always be something in there that you will like. There'll be bands play a certain style, and It's just refreshing though to hear that someone saying, you know, hey, I listen to these other bands as well, or this other style. It doesn't make me any less metal than anyone. Oh, you're not true, blah, blah, blah. You don't dress in a certain way. You don't have the bullet belts and blah, 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 blah.
I didn't even grow up on like crazy heavy music. In fact, like my father was a big music fan, but like he was all over the place with music, man. He would listen to like big band jazz, Motown. He would listen to rock and stuff like that. But like, you know, he was all over the place. Like Phil Collins was played a lot in my house. Jefferson Airplane, just all over the place. Anything from the 80s, 70s, 60s. Like he introduced me to Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, like all kinds of stuff. And I wasn't even a metal person to begin with. Like I grew up in Sacramento, California. It's a big city in California, it's the capital, and all they had was top 40 radio there, you know, so I had to listen to whatever was popular, you know, whether it was rock, country, hip hop, whatever. It was all just top 40, you know, and so that's what I grew up on. I didn't discover metal until much later.
You know what, man? It's all about the love of music. Look, music is a mood thing anyway. So it's always fits whatever mood we're in, and that's good as being musicians or writers. You can draw from all these different aspects to fit a different mood or different theme you want to do an album. You know, you might one day say, hey, we're going to have this other side project band because we want to make this particular style. It might be more melodic or even heavier. It's something, whatever. And, you know, I think it was there was a hip hop head, and he was an old school hip hop head, and he was saying, I was on some podcast quite a few years ago, and he was saying like he draws influence for his lyrics from everything around in life and all these different music. He said, I don't just listen to other hip hop. I want to keep fresh and open myself up. And I always say it, folks, look, I'm a metal punk hardcore guy. That is my favorites. And I'm not going to lie and say, is that the music that I mainly listen to? Yes, it is. And do I prefer the extreme ends in those scenes? Yes, I do. But I still like other music. I recently started getting into, and I think I mentioned this in an email to Mike last night, I've recently started getting into a lot of dark techno and dark synth. And a lot of that, believe it or not, is very influenced by death and black metal in the song titles, and it's some of it's really dark and grimy. It has that atmosphere. It's a bit like it was in the recent John Wick movies when he's fighting in the nightclubs, and it's a bit like that vibe. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And it was one of the other tenants on Founding Fed Up to say, look, I will talk to you even if I don't like your music, because it's not important. It's like, I'm getting asked that a lot. Oh, do you have to like our music for us to come on the show? I'm like, no, of course not. It's not important.
Right.
Or, why, you don't like our music, so I can't come on the show. I'm like, no, I'm still interested in what you do. I mean, hell, you could be, I don't know, a trumpet car band for all I know.
Trumpet corps, there we go.
You invented a new genre. It doesn't matter. There's all things we've got common interests. I mean, we've been nerding on the wrestling, movies, and horror. And hey, it's all music and it's all different forms of art. And sure, we've got our favorites, but man, if you close yourself off to other things that you can draw those inspirations from, you're only limiting yourself. So it was a massive nerd rant, but it was just interesting to hear, man.
That's all I've ever wanted as a musician too. Is like, it's kind of rough here in Tucson, being a small city, and not a lot of places to play. There is quite a few metal bands, and I feel like over the years it's gotten better, but back in the earlier days, it was pretty cutthroat, and there was a lot of BS going on with certain bands and stuff. But like, when I was in Evasion, that's how I met this guy. I always wanted to play with those dudes when they were in Pain Patterns, to the point that like my band was like, no, not Pain Patterns, Ricky, fuck, like so.
Yeah, I think there was a good
shots
while.
on him.
Yeah,
Nearly went everywhere then.
I think it was for like a good 2 years, maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single show where we wouldn't both be playing the same bill.
On the same bill, right? Yeah. And that went for Evasion and Olden, I believe.
Yeah, the elitism you get. Sadly, it's one thing I think will always be there, and I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, I wasn't ever like that. I went through it, and I think it's something we all go through and then learn and think, oh, hang on, man, this was stupid. Let's not be like that. And sometimes I can get comments because I'm a huge underground hip hop head as well. Outside of music, I love that stuff. And people will automatically think, oh, it's what's on the FM radio, what's on TV. And I always go through, no. And nothing wrong with people liking that either. I say it's very, very different. And I'll say, think back to old school hip hop. It's more in line with that, with the lyricism, and the beats are less commercial, etc. But then you can come across someone and be like, yeah, you're not a real metalhead because you like hip hop, blah blah blah, etc. Or you're too punk for metal, or you're too metal for punk.
I have to say though, there, like, especially from a drumming point of view, there are a lot of things you can benefit from as a drummer by listening to hip hop, because hip hop is very bass and drum driven. Like, especially like a lot of the old West Coast hip hop stuff, like Dr. Dre made almost every beat that's almost on every Snoop Dogg album. Yeah, to a certain point, and it's very just old school R&B and snippets of bass and drums that they created beats with. And if you just sat down and listened to hip hop for just a little bit as a drummer, I feel like you would be able to immediately notice, like, oh yeah, this is great. And you can sit there, and that's the thing too, is like, it's not hard to be a drummer for a hip hop group or anything. It's very repetitive. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. But like, yeah, I think it's very beneficial to be multifaceted, especially if you're a drummer.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think for anything from music, film, writing, anything in any capacity, you've got to be open to all these different sources of material out there. And if not, and also if you're going through life, I mean, if it's just going to be, I want to just stay as underground as possible, I'm going to say, I can't be friends with you because you're not metal. I'm like, dude, you're never going to have like two friends.
They're out there.
Yeah. So I'm hoping in the sense that this show does some good in putting across bands like yourselves that, hey, recognize the art involved with metal. We're not all evil either. It is just it is just art. It is just horror themed, music, etc. And then the same with other music and people that can come on. No one is expecting us to like all the music, but just look at it and respect his looks. Hey, everybody's just trying to do their own thing at the end of it.
Right.
You know, so I know I've kept you both for a long time. Believe me, I can talk and talk and talk, and yeah. So I'm putting that disclaimer. I've got to say, man, I've just remembered getting back to a wrestling point, and you mentioned, you know, when you mentioned Dr. Dre and Snoop's cameo on AEW, you know, when he was on top of the ring ropes. I've never seen a man look so afraid in my life. Jumping off those ropes. Like, oh, dude. It was when he was at time coming in, and he was supposed to be, I think it was when Cody was still with the company, and he was supposed to be like a manager or a coach.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And Snoop's facial reactions, Mike, were hilarious when he was like outside the ring. And I'm like, I'm somehow supposed to believe this, but yeah, it was so bad. It was good. It was those.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Didn't he just like clothesline the Miz or something like last WrestleMania or something? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Snoop, man.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. Is there anything then you guys would like to shout out that we may have forgotten in our random off topics and nerding? You know
that. I just have to say, shout out to my family for supporting me with everything that I've done, and yeah, my boys were actually in our music video, so shout out Ryan and Tommy.
Yeah, I guess on my end, I would have to say shout out to Trey and his band Lethian. Trey was the guy that filmed our music video for us. It was a big help. My friend Hunter, who put together the lyric video for Desolation Fog, which will be coming out in the future. Ooh. And Kristen for once again spoiling me with painting us a nice art piece, which has become almost a synonymous vision for the album now. It's hard to not see that painting whenever I listen to our music now, and pretty sure it's going to live out that way too. But big thanks to everyone involved in making this what it is. It's come a long way over the last, I think, year and a half, almost 2 years of production we've been in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's certainly a labor of love, but that really does come across in the album, as I've said, because of everything that it's drawn from. And all those complexities. And yeah, I think if anyone doesn't recognize that, they're not opening their ears.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, I do want to thank you both for coming on the show. You're welcome on anytime. If we're going to get around to setting up that movie nerdathon, wrestling nerdathon with all those different people.
Please do.
Sure.
Yeah, you know, like I said earlier, honestly, you're not the first to ask about that. There's, I think, so far, more or less every band has said, set something like that up. So it'll be chaotic, but it'll be fun. So I don't know, something to think about. So, folks, I want to thank you for those who watched live or will watch back later. It's great stuff. I will be back next week. I think I'll be taking a day or two off because it's AEW All In. Just a reminder there, watch AEW. Get at me if you want to come on the show, anybody, and don't forget to support, subscribe, and smash the mosh likes to stay up to date with everything that's happening. I'm usually on every day, so definitely get at me if you would like to be featured. I want to shout out Mike and Ricky, especially for your patience and supporting all my random nerding and hyperness and off-topic stuff as well. It's been really good to hear about all the creative concepts with the music, thoughts behind the songs as well. It's been really interesting stuff. I enjoyed nerding with you both too. And you're welcome on this show anytime. So just get at me if I can help you in any way.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, man, thanks for having us, for sure.
We look forward to we'll definitely keep in touch. This has been absolutely phenomenal, and we'd love to be a part of any future works you ever do. This has been great.
Yeah, both very welcome. I'm going to have to try and get my act together and get something set up. Yeah, Maidenhead were asking about it as well when they were on. So shout out to them too. Shout out to everybody. So, folks, the links for King of Worms and everything will go in the description. As always, YouTube takes a while to process. So just please be patient on that regard. I'm going to look like I'm doing some backstage theatre play now when I end the broadcast, and I'm like, So pause at the ready and counting down. 3, 2, 1. Peace out. Take care, everybody. Pause at the ready.
Pose at the ready.
Yeah. Here we go.